The afternoon sun shimmers off the white on blue police livery of the motor carriage.
Wait, why am I even thinking about this? Wasn't I supposed to...
Do something important? Something murder related? There's always something important. Doesn't mean you can't take a moment to admire this piece of machinery. This is a Caprice Canema, the Caprice Motor Corps follow-up to their highly successful workhorse, Caprice 40, and the answer to the Lum's racing breed, Ferv series. With its air-cooled, rear-mounted 12-cylinder compression ignition engine, driving the rear wheels through a 4-speed manual gearbox, the Canema is able to reach 100 kilometers per hour in 13.5 seconds and go on to a top speed of 180 kilometers an hour.
Want to draw over in the first sharp corner?
The high center of balance is offset by a large battery bank mounted at the bottom of the cabin, feeding all the auxiliary systems and making the Canema effectively a mobile power plant.
This tech talk is really rubbing me the right way here.
Due to a quite steep price tag, it is very unusual to see one in police livery.
That machine really puts the loco back in locomotion. Very cool.
Mm-hmm. You want to take a closer look?
What's it packing there?
130.
I reckon that's a 7-liter V12 there. Man, that's got to be a major advancement over the KR18 GU engine on the old Caprice 40.
That's what? A 7-liter V12?
7.2. Supercharged.
Saying these words brings him immense joy.
A fine machine.
Yes. An extraordinary machine.
It's nice and all, but why so modest? Put some zing into it. Flare it up. Slam it down. Helium headlights would improve the range and quality of the visual field a lot. It's a bit girly right now. Fit it with some proper off-road components.
Ever thought about switching to helium headlights?
Actually, I have a pair at home. Just haven't gotten around to fitting them yet. I need to lay some wiring for the ballast first.
If we ever get this case solved, maybe we can do it together?
Maybe. Yes, definitely maybe.
And means no.
Okay, let's move.
Indirect modes of taxation. Turns out those Financial Oversight Committee gangsters stuffed millions of hard-earned dividends away in the last place anyone thought to look. The hearts and minds of everyday Rivasholians. You need to spread that deregulation gospel to the people. Tell them about that foreign fair tax. Preach that 98% gross burden. Preach it, preacher man. Set the brothers free. Taxes are racist.
I saw you poking around in Lady Driver's lorry. She in trouble?
The racist told us where her cabin is. We only searched it.
Still better than me, I guess. Told you there's plenty of others who'd tell on her. But, is she in trouble?
There's going to be an investigation.
It's that bad. Man, what should I do? What should I do to help her?
No need for you to do anything, don't worry. The police are looking into it.
Yeah, maybe I should just keep my head down and work on my rhymes while I can.
What's the plan with those rhymes anyway?
Oh, you know. Tommy Leham's gonna be a musician. Sprechgesang, but with beats. I've got a lot of free time on the road to hone my craft.
The correct grammar is Tommy Lahom.
Why Tommy Lehome?
Tommy Lam was taken. My real name's Jerry Lafitte. Tommy's way better.
It's more him. Jerry is a cool name.
Good luck with that, Tommy. Get a run.
Yeah, you too. Be safe, Detective.
You're back. Good. What can I help you with?
I spoke with the lorryman at the roundabout.
Yes, my eyes on the harbor have sent word to that effect. What have you discovered?
Wait, where exactly are these eyes located?
It doesn't really matter. And I do apologize for the surveillance. Wild Pines can't afford to be blind at a time like this.
One of the tall buildings overlooking the roundabout, most likely. That would give them a read on the entire quarter.
In any case, it's a relief to know someone has looked into it. If I may ask, will there be an official investigation? I assume you discovered there is an operation.
She's trying to conceal her excitement, but the slight glimmer in her green eyes tells you otherwise. The lieutenant is about to interject. Cut him off. This decision should be yours.
Yes, I should decide.
Exactly. But what?
Hold on, you seem anxious to know. Why is that?
I've kept my eye on the camionneurs. Even tried to get to know one. It's a mystery I'm already invested in. Which one of them, if any, could organize such a complex operation?
I'll turn up quite a few interesting things, actually.
Ah, good to hear. I wouldn't want to pry into a confidential police matter, but in the event you'd like to share more, I would like to know who it was.
Yes. All ears. That's how she operates. Be very careful what information you're gonna share with her.
It's a she, by the way.
Clever. Few suspect a woman in this sort of skullduggery. Good move on their part.
Seems the architect of the operation has gone missing. An abandoned lorry is near the statue.
A runaway. Good work. This is a tangible lead towards solving the whole mystery.
She's a fan of vintage movie stars. The inside of the cap was plastered with posters.
We contain multitudes, do we not? It might not be pertinent to her profession, but who knows? It may help you find her yet.
She means you know her closer now. In some way, you know her soul a bit.
So a really advanced radio system with a lot of stations saved.
That speaks of the vastness and sophistication of the operation. Were you able to examine the radio?
Unfortunately, the down-up was missing. The radio itself was inoperative.
Sensible for her to disable access to such essential information.
Found research about something called ULAM frequencies related to the operation.
High-intensity microwave frequencies. They're used for navigational purposes, to compress the inter-eastlery space. They may use it to communicate with incoming freighters.
As the shipments approach Revachol, somehow you suspect something more sinister.
Came upon a few hidden maps illustrating the range of the smuggling network.
First-rate find. That should tell you all you need to know about their network, I would imagine.
It's an octopus whose tentacles reach every corner of the city.
An ominous vision. At least you understand the gravity of the situation. And the maps should prove very valuable indeed.
It's possible there's even a connection to La Puta Madre.
What is La Puta Madre?
A seriously bad guy?
Well, he sounds very dangerous. I urge you to take care, officer. I wouldn't want anything to happen to you. Not with what's coming.
I've told you what I've found, now it's your turn.
I appreciate you placing your trust in me. Thank you again for looking into this matter. You have my gratitude, and the gratitude of Wild Pines Group. Now, per our original agreement, it's time for me to share company secrets with you. I wouldn't normally break protocol like this, but the situation demands it. If you don't solve this murder, I'm afraid we may have a bloodbath on our hands.
The words bloodbath sound cold in her mouth. They taste of iron and strawberries.
What was that about, a bloodbath?
Yes, I'm afraid this strike may descend into a small-scale civil war, with possible consequences for all of Rivershoal West.
Since you are sharing, ma'am, this is also the RCM's worst-case scenario.
Then we're on the same page, as grim as it may be.
Tell me again, how are the lynching and the strike connected?
I have an indirect role to play, I'm sad to say. My employer experienced a momentary lapse of faith in me. In that moment, they elected to deploy a private military contractor as an insurance measure. They called it my security detail.
A momentary lapse of faith.
They were dispatched after I relayed the union's initial offer.
Every worker...
A member of the board. I tried to convince my employer it was simply an opening gambit, like you suggested, or a joke even. They did not appreciate the humor.
Do you need a security detail?
Absolutely not. These mercenaries are muscle, pure and simple. They are meant to intimidate the Union into surrendering.
Who are they, exactly?
Crenell, an Oranese military company. As far as I know, 3 arrived in Martinez. They report to me sporadically, but they do not answer to me. To be frank, they wear ceramic armor, have semi-automatic weapons, and years of combat experience. They also have trauma and stressor disorder, and no idea how to conduct themselves in an urban civilian environment.
So, what happened?
The story is, one of them, the colonel, I don't know his real name, sexually assaulted a local woman while he was drunk and separated from his unit. This allowed some of the more militant Union members to subdue him. He was taken out behind the whirling in rags and lynched last Sunday night.
What then?
Nothing. Mr. Clare refuses to let me into the harbor. I have not been able to discuss this matter with anyone there. The remaining 2 Crenell contractors carry out their orders, for now.
For now?
It's a smokescreen. In secret, they are conducting an independent military tribunal into the lynching. Once this investigation is concluded, executions will follow.
What is the nature of this so-called investigation?
Whether to execute one, some, or all of the Union militants.
It will be all of them. The decision is already made. Investigation upon investigation here in Martinez, racing towards some dark deadline.
I have to say, this is not disco.
It is very far from disco. My only hope is that you provide a single, concrete suspect before the mercenaries indiscriminately pick theirs. Simply put, if you don't pin this on someone good and do it fast, they will identify and execute everyone present at the lynching. This in turn will force the Union to respond.
They would have to project strength and power.
The débardeurs have over 2,000 men. It will be 1,000 to 1.
Have you ever seen a hornet invade a beehive, Lieutenant? It's not pretty.
The Serai's giant hornet, the world's 2nd largest insect, can kill 40 honeybees a minute, while a group of 30 can decimate an entire hive of 20,000 bees in less than 4 hours.
These men work in tandem using semi and fully automatic firearms. Their armor is virtually impenetrable to muzzle-loaded weapons, even yours. Most Union workers don't have guns at all.
The muzzle loaders need to be reloaded after every 1 or 2 shots. The automatics every 1 or 2 minutes.
As I said, a bloodbath.
Maybe a good bloodletting is just what Martinez needs. Houses drenched in red, blood gushing down Rue de Saint-Cispar. The whole place mopped with a giant red rag. Fresh bullet holes for all the old buildings.
Wash it nice and clean.
Clean. Yes. Nothing will grow here for 20 years. Crenell will send in gunships and the coalition government will follow suit. It will not be a pretty sight.
Isn't this a pretty bleak scenario you're describing?
Many bleak scenarios have already come true. Nameless, badgeless detective of the citizens' militia. All we can do is keep the rest from going the same way. One single concrete suspect delivered into civil court, and I may be able to defuse this situation.
This colonel, the one who was hanged, did you know him?
If you mean did I see him alive? Yes, but I did not know him.
You don't know how you know. It's not written on her face, nor in her voice, but she had sympathy for this man.
You liked him.
Liked is a bit strong. He was the most charismatic among them. He handled all the talking. His departure left a major gap in the group's communication skills.
His name was...
Lely, his service name, a nom de guerre most likely. He wouldn't divulge his full name. Only one of them did. A bad sign if there ever was one.
Tell me about the others first.
One is a man, Corty, they call him, a nickname as well. The other a woman, Phyllis DePaul. Corty is the gunner, I believe. DePaul is a radio operator.
What would you say was his eye color, the deceased's?
She closes her eyes, trying to picture the man's face, then shakes her head.
I can't remember.
The lieutenant was testing her, asking a small detail first to see if she knew him better than she let on. She passed.
That's all right, man. Anything else? Nationality? What would you say was his age?
He was 40 or 50. It's hard to say which. He had a combat injury on his lower jaw. It made it difficult to estimate his age or gauge his facial expressions.
Indeed, this matches the dental reconstruction we saw on the body. What else? Nationality? Accent?
He was Occidental, I think. Light brown hair, a mixed accent, Oranese, or Messinian maybe. His injury gave him an accent all his own. In a way, it was humanizing. He had to learn to speak through it, through the injury. That's all I know, I guess. I only met him once.
Must be hard to force your face to move in a new fashion. If you continue like this, you'll have an aneurysm. Then you'll have to...
Where are the remaining two mercs now?
They've gone to ground, as it were. I don't recommend seeking them out. For one, they're almost certainly armed to the teeth. They don't have the same respect for the Revachol citizens' militia as I do. To put it bluntly, they think you're vigilantes. Ghetto savages. It will not be a fruitful meeting.
Vigilantes. You're a professional officer of the only legitimate authority in Revachol. You should show those meatheads exactly how savage you really are.
They just need someone to put the fear of Revachol into their hearts.
Did you miss the part about ceramic armor and automatic weapons, detective?
That is a bad idea. One I won't be a party to.
Where are these mercenaries?
One must be at the harbor gates, causing trouble, directing strike breakers, perhaps. You can hear the sounds of the ruckus coming from there all the time. The other has a vantage point in a building south of the roundabout. They were keeping tabs on you while you were canvassing the lorry drivers.
I'm thinking the company put one leading strikebreakers at the gates. What do you think?
That may be so. I still hope you heed my advice. There's no need to kick the hornet's nest.
For all your talk of averting this catastrophe, the situation at the gate is a powder keg. Does this not bother you?
Of course it bothers me, Lieutenant. But my hands are tied. How would my employer react if it appeared I were intervening on behalf of the Union?
Your concern may be appearances. Ours is keeping the peace.
One is probably in a building overlooking the roundabout.
That would afford a good vantage point. In any case, it's practically inaccessible.
Where is your radio for contacting them, if I may ask? Do you have an earpiece?
Heavens no. I'm not an undercover agent. There's a short wave at the ship's wheel.
I have another question for you.
I hope I can answer it better.
You said the deceased assaulted a woman?
Or he didn't. This is information passed on to me from some teenagers loitering around the canal. I cannot testify by it.
Who did the passing on then?
The remaining contractors. Their tribunal. It's what they believe.
What did this teenager by the canal say?
That the man was killed because he assaulted a local woman. I've asked around a bit. This seems to be the accepted story around Martinez.
This does not come as news to us, but still. To your knowledge, where did this assault take place, if you know?
Last Sunday night, at the Whirling in Rags, the hostel by the gates. Supposedly, the colonel was drunk, maybe on narcotics too. Either way, he's alleged to have sexually assaulted a woman. Sometime later, a group of dock workers got their hands on him.
I know the woman you're talking about. You have it under control.
Good. Then you've made progress. It's imperative that you move fast. The tribunal will not be patient.
What can you tell me about Crenel?
Not much. Their public resume is relatively good, as far as private military contractors go. I believe they were once called Downwell.
Down a deep, black well.
They boast a long list of clients. Saint-Baptiste, Welchman-Lorenz, Eintracht. A warning sign, however. The operations concerned all take place in third or fourth world countries. Guarding facilities, escort missions and such.
Meaning they're used to operating in war zones.
Yes. All the good conflict corridors, Supramundi, Yesut, the Seminese Islands, countries that don't have a good record reporting atrocious military conduct on their soil.
Sounds like maybe the colonel went a little native during the course of his duties.
I wouldn't go as far as to use that term, detective.
It's the expression she objects to.
What? Going native?
Yes.
She picked a strange hill to die on. Strike.
Sounds like you object towards going native more than him raping and killing people here.
She's silent.
What is the purpose of this, detective?
This is where you draw the line, going native, not hiring a paramilitary death squad.
Paramilitary death squad is a bit rich. But yes, were it up to me, I would have at least vetted them more thoroughly.
Okay, anything else you got on them?
Sadly, no. Before this happened, I had little interest in them. Now that I do, I don't have the resources. If you still have access to the ICP's database, you could run a better background check than I ever could. It may take some time, though.
The International Collaboration Police, ICP, is charged with coordinating law enforcement activities in complex, multinational investigations. Their database is the single largest source of information in the world.
Do you know a lot about the inner workings of the RCM and the ICP, ma'am?
In my line of work, it pays to do your research. I was prepared to deal with the RCM. I did not think I'd be dealing with a group like Crenel.
Could you contact the company? Tell them to call them off?
I have. And they will. However, these orders take time to reach what is basically a rogue unit out in the field here. Until they do, it's all on us.
She's being truthful. She is pressing them as hard as she can.
How much time do we have?
Until the executions start? Truthfully, I don't know. It depends on their progress identifying the members of the lynch mob, and their impatience.
They don't report their progress to you?
Not on this matter. I'm afraid they consider this a personal initiative.
5 days, not more. Maybe sooner.
It's a matter of days, not weeks.
That's enough for now.
I am sorry to have been the bearer of bad news. If there is anything else I can help you with, please ask.
I got some more questions about reality.
More lessons in basic reality? My favorite part of the day. Go ahead, ask me anything.
What is...
What is all of this? The scent, the sound, the air.
What world is this?
What world? The only one, I suppose. The world of matter. And its pale antipode.
The camera of her mind glides over the surface of the water.
What do you see?
Great bodies of water. Forest-covered surfaces. Clusters of light where the cities lie. You've seen the montage. We all have. This world is enough.
It must be. This is the greatest and the kindest arrangement the atoms had in them. A frisson lifts the hair on the back of your arm. Wind sweeps the surface of the bay.
The wind is sweeping the waters.
The world is a suzerainty of Revachol.
There is a term of endearment they coined for it in the DeLorean century, when humanity was high on this world, discovering more and more of it, these archipelagos included.
What is it?
Elysium.
Elysium. The world needs a term of endearment.
It does. There are those who would call it hell.
What is hell?
A term of hatred that originates, like many such things, with the Mesk petro-fascists.
I don't feel like I've got the whole picture yet.
Oh, you want a picture of the world? There is no complete set yet, dear. They're having some trouble reaching orbit.
How come?
Great things are difficult to achieve. For now, we're viewing the world from the inside, sideways.
Inside sideways? What shape is the world then?
We used to think it was a sphere, but that is beginning to look less and less likely by the day. You wouldn't know it from the tabloids, but the ORG nations have been launching weather balloons into the lower ionosphere since the 30s.
ORG, Occident Revachol Grad.
There's a steadily increasing trickle of images. Between the big three scientific contributors, they're piecing together a dark grey corona.
A dark grey corona?
Yes. Pale covers 72% of the surface. There are grey flares and prominences, even arcs above entire isolas. The images are blurry, but if there was a sphere in there, it certainly looks like it fractured a long time ago.
A cold fear seeps into you.
Oh my god, wait. What the hell are you telling me?
You seem to be spooked. Please don't be.
The pale. What do you mean corona?
They say there is a rarefied envelope of matter surrounding the darkened disk of our planet. That is, if we are still living on a planet. Or, to speak more plainly, imagine vast swathes of land disrupted by nothingness. I am sorry, dear. It must sound quite terrifying through the acute encephalopathy. Even scientific positivism isn't entirely convinced about what we're dealing with here. But this is one of the greatest questions of our time. Maybe when they get the complete set together, it will jolt us out of our rut, bring us together, however naive it may sound.
A fractured corona doesn't feel like it's gonna bring anyone together.
You have misimagined it. I don't have the power to convey to you the effect and geometry of the images that depict our world from below low orbit. It's like the crowning of the world. It's insane. Very disco. You'd love it.
Well, if you say it's disco...
See, everyone finds something worth holding on to in this world, however wasted its opportunities.
The cold seeps into you. The air is heavy with 80% humidity. Suddenly, you're conscious of yourself standing there, on whatever this all is. Your arms hang down by your sides. The lieutenant observes you both, silently. He adjusts his glasses.
You said pale. What is pale?
The pale is not, technically speaking, part of reality.
Yes. Also, I think we've had enough excitement for today. We do have a case to attend to.
His voice is low, but firm. All she can say is,
Of course, Lieutenant. Let's try something else.
I don't want to. I want to know what the pail is.
I don't think your colleague would appreciate that. He has already been so patient with this whole exercise. Let's continue with something else, all right? You can ask about anything else in the world. Anything.
but she wants to tell you. You could sneak back later when he's not around, unless you can convince him to step aside. Good idea. Just ask him. He won't make a scene.
Jim, can I talk to the ma'am alone for a second?
Fine.
See? What can he do? You're a grown man.
Now, what is the pail?
Are you sure you're sure? Your colleague seemed adamant.
Yes, what is the pail?
Okay. The Pale is the most dominant geological feature of the world, Detective. The separative tissue between the islas. It is the inter-islary mass.
Wait, and what is an isla?
Isla is a Messinian word for a continent of matter, enveloped on all sides by the Pale. Also, isolation, or landmass. We used to believe there was only one. In the last 4 centuries, we have discovered 7. Windy, Seol, Samara, Ilmara, Grad, Katla, and this, Insulinde.
And Insulin Day is?
An oceanic isla. It comprises mostly of water. Muindi is the largest, Katla the coldest, Insulinde the bluest. What can I say? Each is perishing and dear.
Okay, what is the pail like?
Achromatic, odorless, featureless. The Pale is the enemy of matter and life. It is not like any other, or anything in the world. It is the transition state of being into nothingness.
The negation of being.
The negation of...
That's right. The negation of being.
Is it here?
No, Detective. We're safe. It begins there, 6,000 kilometers to the north, and even more to the south, east, and west. You are in the middle of the Isla.
As your gaze instinctively turns north, a small black pit opens up in your stomach.
6,000 kilometers from the end of the world?
Yes. That is enough. Many cities are built much closer.
And there.
An uproar of matter, darling. Rising into the Pale. Rolling. Evaporating even. A great vision. The area of transition between the world and the Pale is called Porch Collapse. Imagine a grey coronal mist, cold vapor marked by spores of an opportunistic microorganism, a mold that's adapted to grow at the edge of the unrest. It's the most disco thing you will ever see.
You hear your pulse rise. The air feels caustic and cold suddenly.
What are its physical qualities?
It's difficult to describe, or even measure. Something whose fundamental property is the suspension of properties. Physical, epistemological, linguistic. The further into Pale you travel, the steeper the degree of suspension, right down to the mathematical. Numbers stop working. No one has yet passed the number barrier. It may be...
There's a slippery article in there.
Is it the Pale or Pale?
Pale when it's particular, this territory of Pale. The Pale when it's Pale in its entirety. Once you've seen it, language balks at the difference.
If we're surrounded by Pale, how do we get from Isola to Isola?
Oh, it is so difficult for us.
A squall of birds, Hardware operating in the harbor. Firm. Self-evident.
It is possible to force dimensions on the Pale. In modern times, we can even compress its latitude, bouncing radio waves from one end to the other, shortening the path. But it is still hard for humans to navigate the Pale without getting lost, or having our minds damaged.
The Pale can damage the mind?
Extensively.
How?
Some say the damage stems from extreme sensory deprivation. Others argue that Pale somehow consists of past information that's degrading, that it's rarefied past, not rarefied matter. They call it the blend over of the self. The Pale does not only suspend the laws of physics, but also the laws of psychology, maybe history even. The human mind becomes over-radiated by past.
Who says and who argues?
Who says and who argues?
The logical positivists say, the dialectical materialists argue.
What does this over-radiation feeling feels like?
It feels terrible. Absolutely terrible. International standards strictly limit civilian travelers to 6 days of Pale exposure per year.
It's more for her. Way more.
You're not a civilian passenger.
No, nameless detective of the Citizens Militia. I am a member of the Entropanetic business class. I'm cleared and trained for 22 days of Pale transit annually.
Perhaps that explains her strange pining after the revolution. Some degraded early memories. Someone else you've met may have been exposed as well. The strange grey-haired woman in her lorry.
Do lorry drivers pass the Pale?
Yes, carried in the hulls of airships. It's a horrific job. Automation will abolish it soon.
You should ask the Pale driver about this. See what she says. That poor woman must have stories to tell, like you wouldn't imagine.
Are you over-radiated?
Up to my gills, officer.
An acidic smile on her lips. It's getting worse every year.
What is entrophonic?
Entropanetics is the scientific study of the Pale, or a recent iteration of it by way of Grad. The study of the Pale reaches back 6,000 years. The Pericarnassians called it the Western Plain.
They had not traveled the entire circumference of the Pericarnassian Super E-Solar. It was not merely in the west, it was everywhere, even then, surrounding them.
Did they cross it? The Western Plain?
There are signs of pre-modern crossings. Successful navigation of the Pale relies not just on technical know-how, but intensive psychological preparation. Some of these tactics have been known for thousands of years.
What has entroponetics changed then?
Nothing. We remain powerless before the Pale. The only real advance in Pale transit is the speed with which an aerostatic craft can pierce it. Less exposure leads to less effects later.
Aerostatic craft?
Hybrid airships, detective. Conventional rotors or jet engines no longer add velocity after the point of reference for motion is suspended, once you've crossed from near Pale to far Pale. In essence, we throw them in and they come out the other end, if we throw them precisely.
If we do not?
Then they don't.
Gone, like a skipping stone beneath the surface.
How much Pale is there compared to the world?
The Pale outweighs reality 2 to 1. There is more Pale than there is matter, and the ratio is slipping.
Slipping how? To a detriment or...
What do you think, detective?
It's growing. There's more and more of the Pale.
Precisely. One of the few measurable effects of the Pale is that it is expanding at an unknown rate. An intuitive conclusion of that development is that one day the Pale will cover everything. But this sort of talk is mostly left to extremists.
Cover everything? That can't be. Where would we go?
Most people and indeed most private and government sector organizations, entire civilizations and religions even, find handy ways to ignore or downplay that knowledge. I suggest you do the same.
Off we go. You see the hanged man's mouth open.
Off we go into the wild hell yonder.
One and all. They say pale is death, but for the universe.
Why should we just leave, and the world get left behind?
Let's return to reality, please.
Yes, sweet reality. But before we do, tell me, Detective, is this the first time you're hearing this? Do you really not remember anything?
I sometimes sense vague shadows of a past, and it's not good.
Then tell me, what do you think of the Pale?
Its advance can only be stopped with the immediate, total, ruthless communism.
Your ailing constitution, sweaty forehead, the beads there, and your heavy breathing.
You really didn't know. This does not spell good for the investigation, Detective. If you don't know even this, then...
This investigation will be my masterpiece. The one they remember me by. I promise.
I hope so. I truly do. If I may suggest, hold on to your colleague, Kitsuragi. I ran a check on him and he is very competent. In the meanwhile...
Some of that assurance is meant for herself, as much as it's meant for you. She must have a lot on the line here.
You have me. I will assist you in any way I can, even if we have to do it one basic term at a time.
Good. You have not passed out from it. Perhaps I worried for nothing. Are we still on the reality lowdown, or should we do actual police work now?
That was fucking insane, Kim.
Yes, well, the rest of us have dealt with it for thousands of years, so...
You will have to deal with it, too, the lieutenant thinks. This is why I didn't want you to know.
Right. Let's get to work, Lieutenant.
Good luck, detectives.